Okay, we are continuing Hilchos Aromas, Kuf Chet. Okay, we are again in Aleph, and we're discussing using the same oven for roasting. Isser and Heter at the same time. Let's read. So we said sometimes it's Asr lechatchila, sometimes it's mutter. Obviously, the accepted minhag is clearly to avoid it unless we double wrap it, at least on a din lechatchila. Fine. Haga. Okay. This is the beginning of the Haga in Aleph. V'hu adin labasar im chalav nami dina hachi. It's the same din. You have two dry things in the oven, and they're roasting, they're baking at the same time. It's the exact same halacha that we just learned. All right, lechatchila we avoid it unless it's covered or all the other heterim. But if it's covered, then it's okay, even lechatchila. Although we generally don't. V'nohagin lahachmer lechatchila afilu betanur gadol. And so the Rama says, and we know we're machmer lechatchila. Just avoid problems. It avoids mistakes. It avoids. Okay, so this way we just avoid it. Even if you have a big oven, we just don't do it. B'diavad lahakel afilu betanur katan. And the other extreme, we know mikar din b'diavad reicha lav milta, and therefore b'diavad, no matter what's happening, if it's just an issue of dry heat and roasting, it's all okay. Only if it's an issue of zeya, which we previously learned, could be an issue. Okay. V'im afa pat im basar. Now what happens if you bake bread with meat in the oven at the same time? So the Rama writes, Asr la'ochlo im chalav. Now this bread, l'chadchila, you're not allowed to have it with dairy. Im yesh lo pat acher. If you have other bread that you can get your hands on. If you don't have any other bread, then we consider it b'diavad. V'chen im goy afa pat im iser. Let's say you want to go, we know you're allowed to go to, at least in the olden days, you're allowed to go to a non-Jewish bakery and get their plain bread. Okay, if that applies nowadays or not, separate topic. So let's say you go in there and you know that they may have cooked it at the same time with their treif meat. Asur liknot otopat im yesh pat acher. So you're not allowed to buy from such a goyish bakery if you know that that's a significant risk, and because if you can go get from another goyish bakery or Jewish bakery. The kol ze mikri lechatchila, because this is all a din lechatchila. Going shopping is also a little bit of a din lechatchila. Aval im ein lo pat acher berevach mutter b'shneihem. But if you have no choice, there's no other bread to get. It's too difficult, too expensive. So in this case, we call it diavad. All right, there's different levels of b'diavad. All right, yesh omrim. Now, some say the matirin reicha afilu b'diavad. Now, there is an opinion that we don't even allow reicha even b'diavad. Ela im kein tanur patuach k'tzat min hatzad. Unless the oven had at least a vent, at least was a little bit open. Olamala b'makom sha'ashen yotze. Right, somewhere in the front, the top, where some of the reyach can escape. Ubemakom have said ein lahachmer b'diavad afilu satum lagamre. But that's not the halacha. In the case of b'diavad and certainly b'hefsid, we can be 100% meko. Ima iser lagamre. Ima iser davar charif. Afilu satum lagamre. Fine. Ima iser davar charif. Now let's say we're talking about an iser with a davar charif. You are baking with something that's a davar charif. The kol sheken ima heter davar charif, and certainly if the heter is a davar charif, so then reicha miltahi. So then vafilu b'di'evet asar im shneim megulim. So the Rama holds that reicha is milta lehalacha if one of them is a davar charif, and therefore it's a problem even b'di'evet if they're both going to be uncovered. Okay. Right, and generally you're not going to have batel b'shishim on one to the other, but then maybe, okay, separate issue to consider in each particular case. Aval, im echad mehem mechuse, but if one of them is covered, afilu bebatzek be'alma mutter. Even if it just got covered up with food, with bread, with dough, then for sure it's not a problem as it's covered. The dough itself on the top might be an issue, but the food inside the pot, since it's covered, even though the other item is charif, it's not going to go through. That's for sure not an issue. Okay. Im afu ot salo eser veheter tachat machavat achat megulin aser. But then he says, let's say you're going to bake Isser and Heter together on one pan. Right? So they're on the same pan, they're sharing the same pan. Even if it's open, they're right next to each other in the same pan, and you're roasting them both in the oven. Right? We're not assuming there's no juices flowing back and through, but they're right next to they're next to each other on the same pan. Aser. We say it's aser afilu b'di'evet. Vehu adin im afu b'kei gavna pat im basar. Aser lo'echlo be'chalav. So, and same thing, on the same pan, you're going to bake a piece of challah and roast a piece of meat. So that challah, if it's on the same pan, right next to it, for sure that's going to have a din of, it became fleishik. And you can't have it with milk. Okay. Okay. Fine, let's keep going. Aval, bazeh achar zeh ein lachush. But if we're not afraid of roasting at two separate times, that's for sure not a problem. Using the same oven is not going to be a problem at all. With any of these items, it's not going to make it fleishik, milkik, treif, no issues whatsoever for reicha if it's bazeh achar zeh. Okay. Again, it could be an issue of moisture of zeya depending on the food you're talking with. But when it comes to the issue of dry heat, we're not concerned. Ela im kein hazeya, hizeya hamachavat mishneim, the ze aser afilu beze achar ze, im hayu shneim megulin, dehave kekisui shel kedera. So look back inside the Gimel. Basically, it could be an issue if you're dealing with liquids, even one after another, if there was no lid to keep in the steam, and now the steam filled up the oven, then it could be that the next time you cook, the zeya will go up, pull it out of the walls, and bring it back in. That's in more for tzadi gimel. Yesh omrim, the kol makom de amrinan reicha milta. Now, some say that whenever we say reicha milta ve'oser b'di'evet, hainu dafka deleka shishim menaheter neged ha'eser. That's when the heter part is not 60 times the heter part. I mean, often we're talking about two big pieces, so it's not even an issue, but when do we say reicha is a milta? Could be a problem when there's no shishim. Aval b'di'ika shishim in a heter. But if there's 60 times the heter piece of meat is 60 times the small piece of treif that got in the oven, afilu b'kol ma shebatanam revatel eser, so then it's all not a problem because it's batel b'shishim, and therefore you're not worried about reicha. Uletzorach hefsid yesh lin hokein, and whenever it's a hefsid, so is the halacha. Okay, I guess the most practical aspect where that's relevant is according to the Ramah when it's charif. Otherwise, we generally say everything is mutter b'di'evet anyway, even if it's not batel b'shishim. Now, yesh omrim the eser ha'oser b'mashu kagon chametz b'pesach reicha milta. So now the Ramah points out that there is a yesh omrim, and therefore it's a problem by chametz on Pesach, because reicha, when we say milta lav milta, or basically the question is, obviously there's something there, but it's insignificant, so you don't have to worry about it. But there's something there that's being batel. So according to the Yesh Omrim, that's how it's understanding reicha, that there's still something there, but it's so little. But when it comes to Pesach, because of or machmer by Pesach, chumrah of Pesach, it's osir b'mashu, even though it's just a mashu and it doesn't really have any significance, and it normally wouldn't make anything aser, but because it's chametz on Pesach, so therefore even a mashu is a problem, and therefore Reicha is a Mashu, and therefore it could still be a problem. The Osar Afilu B'di'evid, and it's a problem even B'di'evid. Imatan or Katan, V'husatum. It could be a problem if it's a small oven and it's closed. Okay. The reason is because of Mashu, so then in all situations, why would it only be in a small oven? Well, because then if it's a big oven, then you're not going to get a mashu, enough of a mashu there. I mean, there is. Right, we're not discussing atoms and molecules. V'ha'eser v'haheter megulin toch hatanor, and everything is open. Obviously, we know if everything is closed, it's never an issue. Okay. Right, if there's lids on it, never an issue. Wrapped. V'yesh omrim she'ein lechalek, and some say, what do you mean? There's no difference. Reicha is reicha, and we hold lav milta, and it's not a problem. It's not even considered a mashahu whatsoever, and therefore there's no difference in the halacha. V'makom hefsed yesh lismach adivrei hamakilim. And so the Rama says, okay, when you can be machmer on Pesach, but when it becomes a big disaster or a makom hefsed, then yesh lahakal. Okay. And then look in Kuf Yud Chet, we'll get there later. Im yesh lahachim lechatchila l'safot shtei kederos v'achas mehen shel eser al akira or litzlot eser eitzel heter. Doing same two things on the pot, on the stove at the same time. Okay. Let's go to Seif Bet. Bameh devarim amurim. Now what are we talking about? What we just mentioned? That's betzli. That's if you're roasting it. All right, if you're roasting it in an oven. Aval im ba lavashlan bekadera ze le'atzmo. Veze le'atzmo. Afilu betanur katan. Upiv satum mutter. Ve'alfa pi shepia kaderot megula. So that's because it's completely open. But if you come to cook it, wait 1 second. One second. Okay, so here he's saying the reyach of roasting, the Shach explains, the reyach of roasting is stronger, more of a problem than if reyach from boiling, from cooking. So therefore, if you're going to cook 2 pots by themselves inside the oven, and even if it's a small oven, and even if everything and the oven is closed, and the 2 pots are in there, and they're both pots are open, there's no lid, we're not worried about reicha coming out of the pots. It's not as strong, and it doesn't transform as much.
How can you not be concerned about Deah in such a situation?
Yeah, that's a good question. The Siman is not right. The Siman's not focused on Deah. Well, let's keep reading. Right. So by Deah, we also learned those. If you have some opening, the Deah escapes. So let's read the Rama. V'davka. What are we talking about? How does this make sense? You're asking. Shedavka shehatanor patuach ktsat. You have to have at least what we have a vented. Most ovens are vented. The door has to be a little bit open, or there has to be a vent for the steam to escape. So one issue is reicha, another issue is steam. For steam to become a problem, to go in there and then pick it off the walls or transfer from one to another, it needs to be where it's ava'imhu satu mikol hatstadim. But if the oven is completely closed, like we wrap things up for Tzarech Shabbos, Hatmana, Aser. Then an oven that's completely enclosed, that's going to be a problem. Afilu b'di'evid, yesh machmirin, v'osrin ima iser v'heter megula, if it's exposed, u'b'makom hefsed meruba, yesh lahakal. But there is what to be makel, because the question is, does the Deah actually do anything?
Is the Rama being cholik on the Shulchan Aruch, when the Shulchan Aruch says, "Afilu kanot kantav satum"? Is he being cholik and says "David Shulchan Aruch"? Well, that's being mafarish the Shulchan Aruch.
I don't know. He's definitely, probably he's mafarish the Shulchan Aruch, and the question you ask the Shulchan Shulchan Aruch if he agrees or disagrees. I'm not sure. Okay. Anyways, let's go on. I think the halakha l'maisa though is fairly clear, as we discussed previously. Okay, let's go to Seif Gimel. Himei shamnunit shal iser al amerda shakarim fala. So basically, you have some kind of pans or pots where there's cracks in there or corners, and there's a bit of shamnunit. You cannot get rid of it. It's not going anywhere. So l'chatchila, you don't want to use those kelim, obviously, but let's keep reading. Asr litein alea heter kol hayom. So as long as it's a ben yomo, you cannot use these pans. Mil. Kishe'ena bat yoma muter lishtamish ba mishum di'efsher ben yinacher. So if you have a little bit of shamnunit left behind, all right, very thin, very, very thin layer, tiny bit left behind, there's something there. So normally we learned that by mamashas, even Eino ben Yomo is still a problem. But in a case where it's very, very little and it cannot be removed and it's efshar, then we say Eino ben Yoma, it becomes a ta'am lifgam, and you can even use it because there's no way to get rid of it. Haga, v'kol zman shehi bat yoma, lo mahani ba hagala, v'lo klipa b'kli umanut. And as long as it's a ben yomo, you can't do anything. It absorbs in the walls, and it's called a ben yomo. There's no way to, we don't kasher it, and we don't. And even if you want to take a kliya manut, some kind of a instrument to scrape off the layer from the kli, to try and remove kadei klipa, it doesn't help. If it's a ben yomo, you just have to wait till it's 24 hours go by before you use that pot. Okay, and as the Shach points out, there's no issue of God. Normally we say, if we have kalim that became treif, we can't use it even after 24 hours because, right, we say tam lifgam, can't be a problem mikar din, but it's midarabanan, and you can't use it because otherwise it becomes exeris so that you don't end up using ben yomo dishes. And in this case, it's not going to help to make exera because you can never remove it. So therefore it's okay. And therefore, if you lechatchila, since you can't, it becomes mutter. One second. Fine, let's go on. Dalit. Okay. Pat chama shemunachat al gabe chavit ptucha shel yain nesech asura. Now, let's say you take a hot piece of bread, okay, and you put it on top of a barrel of wine, and there's a little opening, right, for the air to escape. So there you put a hot bread where the little opening is. So there's a little bit of a concentrated aroma that leaves odor from I would call it probably an aroma from the wine. And we're talking about yain nesach, which was used for avodah zara. It's aser behana. So now this bread, since it was hot, right? So the shach adds a filu stam yinam. Very good. So we'll get to this in a second. Okay, so the Shach also points out that when it comes to hot bread, it pulls out the aroma from the wine, and it's a stronger aroma. Again, all the Achronim ask, how is Seif Dalid not arguing on Seif Aleph? Because by Seif Aleph we learned B'diavad Mikar Din Reichat Lav Milta. Here we see it is a problem and it makes the bread aser. So what's the teretz? So one of them is So one of them, one way to explain the Shulchan Aruch is it is a bit of a stira, and he paskins like some of the Rishonim in one and others in the other, and it is a bit of a stira. But why would he do that? So again, he's a likut, he quotes, but also they explain because so one of the explanations is that He's only machmer by something that's aser behana, and that's only by yein nesach. But the Shulchan Aruch himself would be makel if it's stam yenam. That's one of the explanations. Another one is when it comes to meat or a bread in an oven, the meat doesn't impart so much reicha. But here, when it comes to wine, the aroma of wine has a much more stronger effect on the food, and therefore it's more noticeable. So it's a stronger ta'am. In other words, part of the question of reicha could be how much ta'am is imparted. And we generally assume it's extremely insignificant. But when it comes to wine, it's more significant. Okay, so that's another thing. Also, another one that the Tur and the Darkei Moshe point out, that when it comes to an oven, it's very spread out, the reicha, and so therefore it won't affect a little bit from a different angle, similar. It won't have as much effect on other food in the oven, but when it comes to wine with a small opening and the hot bread, again, it's hot and it's right there, it's going to absorb the aroma and it will make a stronger effect on it, and that's why, that's the chiluk. Some, like the Pri Chadash, matir, like 100% dalit, completely argues on the Shulchan Aruch, but most of the Risha Achronim, Ashkenazim and Sfardim, they're machamer, like dalit. It just happens to be machloket among the Achronim. They're worried about stam yenam like the Shach or not, and by hefsed maybe they're more makel. Certainly most are makel by stam yenam with the hefsed meruba, and then anywhere in between. Okay. Aval, ima pat sonenet, afil ima chavit petucha o pat chama v'chavit megufa, perush stuma. Right, what we said was only if it's hot, right over the opening, but if the bread is cold, or it's sealed, the barrel, so then the reicha from the wine will not make a difference, and therefore it's mutter. However, v'ima ya pat sa'orim, but if it's bread from barley, so then it's aser imapat chama filo chavit megufa. So then, if it's hot, it will extract or absorb the aroma from the wine, even if the barrel is closed, because the one bread is more affected by the aroma than the other. So that's the difference. Okay, I think we'll go on. What time is it?
The barley bread will pull through.
The barley bread gets affected more from the reicha, is how I understand. Okay.
Even though it's sealed.
Even though it's sealed, exactly. I mean, I guess it might depend how thick your barrel is. I don't know. Okay, or how coated it is. I'm sure that makes a difference. Okay, let's read Hey. I think we're going to read Hey. Fine, let's just read Hey. And then we'll go back later. Mutar lishof, we'll finish this tomorrow, this whole topic. Mutar lishof befiv reach yain nesach derech nekev shebechavit. Now, what about just smelling? Are you allowed to smell? Right? We learned, this is the sugya a little bit of reicha, right? Reicha milta, lav milta. So we learned that the yain, the aroma, could be a problem if you're going to put it in hot bread and then you eat it. But here you're just smelling. So some say it makes a difference of just through your mouth, but many, the Pri Chadash and others, say it's just an expression, or it's Alom Abaya Kama or whatever. But basically, it makes no difference how you smell it. So a little machloket there, but basically the case is you're smelling the reyacha of yain nesach derech nekev shebechavit leida imhu tov. So you want to just smell it through the hole to see if it's gone spoiled, if it's vinegar, if it's wine, whatever the situation might be. So then it's mutter. Now,
for what purpose?
Well, yeah, I'm not exactly sure, but there could be a purpose when you want to know. But you can't get hana if it's yei nesach. You're not allowed to get hana. So the case is you're not getting hana. You're not doing it because you want to enjoy this fragrance of wine. And if anything, some say the reason why it's mutter is it even hurts your nostrils. It's annoying, And you're not doing it derech hanaso, because the way to get of wine is just to get it's for drinking. It's not omed for reach, and so therefore it's eno kederech hanaso. And there's, for numerous possible reasons, it's definitely not a problem. Agav though, aval asr latam, but you're not allowed to taste it. Of course not. Alva bishe'eno bolo, even though you're not going to swallow it, you can't taste it and spit it out. Shach points out was when any isuri achila, even if it's not asr behana, also it's asr to taste it always. The asr lazalif yain nesach asr behana. You're not allowed to asr behana. Aval mutter lazalif stam yinam shemutter behana. You know what that's smelling? I believe. Wait,
lazalif is to sprinkle,
to spray it. It's asr to spray it in the air for fragrance, because then you're getting hana from it, right? If your kavanas to get hana from it, obviously it's 100% asr. So if that's what you're doing for a right, you're spraying in the room for fragrance. So if that's what you're doing with it, then that's mamish getting hana. So when we said it's mutter, it's only if it's to test it in a derech with it. It's mutter about, but stam yenam is mutter behana. So then it's here about mutter l'zal stam yenam is mutter behana. Okay, we'll stop here.